Lord, lead me home. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, oh, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. I am weak, but thou art strong. Jesus, keep me from all wrong. I'll be satisfied as long as I walk. Let me walk close to thee. Just a closer walk with thee. Granted, Jesus is my plea. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Take my hand, Lord Jesus, take my hand. Take my hand, Lord Jesus, take my hand. There's a race to be run, there's victory to be won. Every hour, give me power to go through. And when my feeble life is over, time for me will be no more. Guide me gently, safely on to thy kingdom shore, to thy shore. Just a closer walk with thee. Just a closer walk, just a closer walk. Granted, Jesus is my plea. Just a closer walk. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be.
Supposed to keep playing until I release you. Now you're released. You can go and have your seats, band. Thank you. You sound very good tonight, in spite of my help. And I want to just say greetings to everybody that's in here and everybody that's out there. This is the Children of the Free Church Ministry, and we gather here live every Sunday at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Right? Here at childrenofthefree.com. And you can see, in quotes, reruns or access archives here and on YouTube and on Facebook as well. Quickly want to give a special hello out there to Canton, North Carolina, and to Desert Hot Springs, California, and to Los Feliz, California. Along with teaching here that for faith and trust, God gives us, it's a gift. We don't deserve it, we can't earn it. He gives us grace and peace. Grace from the Greek word charisma means unmerited favor. And that's the key to it right there. Unmerited. It's a gift. And He gives us peace. He's no longer against us. We teach also, amongst other basics of faith, God's ways. That's something else that we're gifted to and commissioned to teach, God's ways. We're going to point out 2 or 3 of them tonight and incorporate the understanding of them into our faith lives. I'm preaching to myself tonight. You're welcome to come along and join in. For one, our life of faith, and that's not just belief. Faith is not something you have, it's something you do. That's derived from another Greek word, either pistis or pisteo, which means action. It's a verb, action. Action that's based on belief. So it's not just belief, it's action based on belief. Sustained by confidence that God's going to do what He said He's going to do. So that you act on what His promises are in spite of what you're confronted with daily. In these things that we're going to be teaching you tonight, I think you're going to find them very useful, especially on the subject of what we're talking about tonight. This life of faith that I was mentioning a moment ago seems to go in cycles, or ups and downs, as God trains us and at times tests us. Or Satan attacks, God counters. And that's illustrated pretty well in the life of David, King David, that you'll find in 1 Samuel. We're not going to go there tonight, but I want you to write this down and go there on your independent study. The book of Samuel. One illustration of this cycle that I was talking about that applies to God's chosen ones, God's fathers. In the 17th chapter of 1 Samuel, that's where you'll find that David goes up against Goliath. And we're not going to go into the details of it tonight, only in so much as to tell you he acted in faith. When he went against him, he said, "In the name of the Lord, I come against thee." And before he did that, he said something that got everybody's attention. Young David, a youngster, and Goliath, depending on what sources you want to believe, was either anywhere from 8 to 13 feet tall. And David said, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that dares to take on the army of the living God?" And that got everybody's attention. Everybody, the king, his generals, his cohorts are on there. Certainly God all did a double take when he said that. Well, God noticed that and he entered in, enabled David to have victory. He killed Goliath. big time attack, victory. He killed Goliath. 17th chapter of 1 Samuel. Right in the very next chapter, 18th chapter of 1 Samuel, David gets rewarded for what he's done, and he gets to marry the king's daughter. Pretty nifty, pretty neat. Big reward. And right again, the very next chapter, chapter 19, Saul loses his mind and gives the order, go kill David. So, it's a attack, victory, reward, attack, victory, reward, etc., etc., etc. And that's a prime example I was just giving you in 1 Samuel about that life of faith, that life of the chosen one. Or we can use another example where it's illustrated in the story of Elijah that we just recently taught, Elijah the Tishbite. He marches into Ahab's court, the most evil king so far, because they were worshiping idols. God said if they ever did that again, he was going to shut the heavens up. And they were worshiping idols, and God didn't shut the heavens up. So Elijah took it on himself to stand up for God, speak forth his word, walked into Ahab's court at risk of death, and said, it's not going to rain anymore unless I announce it. After he took the risk, God enters in, and he says, get thee hence. The modern day colloquialism for that would be, if you've ever heard somebody say, get the heck out of Dodge, or get the hell out of Dodge. Well, God says, get thee hence. That's the way he says it. And he said to Elijah, get thee hence. And he told him to go by the brook Cherith, that he had instructed the ravens to feed him there, bring him meat there. And Elijah did what God told him, and that is certainly what happened. The birds brought him meat in the day and in the night, and he drank from the brook. He was protected. He was sustained. God provided for him. And then after a while, the brook dried up. Okay, remember we're talking about now change and movement in this life of faith. And I pointed out the cycle in Samuel with David where he goes attack, victory, reward, attack, victory, reward. Here it's another type of cycle where God moves you around where he wants you. When he wants. He is in control. And the best, I would say, encapsulation of this principle that we're talking about now, this other one, and so that you can see it for yourself, I want you to go with me into the book of Deuteronomy, way back in the Old Testament, first chapter. We're going to go to a place that is often misquoted. I've done it myself. I think I did it recently by saying, you've tarried too long on this mountain. I think I said it recently. That's the essence of what's being said here. But if you can give me a show of hands when you're in Deuteronomy. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 1. I want you to go to verse 6. And it says, the Lord our God spake unto us in Horeb, saying, ye have dwelt long enough in this mount. Saying the same thing, but it's more subtle in that it shows God seems to be much kinder and gentler saying it this way instead of you've tarried too long at this mountain, because that kind of has a connotation that you've been loitering or hanging out, or even a suggestion that it's been a strugglesome waiting. No, he just says you've dwelt long enough in this mount. And that could encapsulate and mean you've learned the lesson you were supposed to learn while you were here. Or you did what you were supposed to do while you were here. Or simply that God's saying in his time, time to move on. Time to change. That's part of our life. and part of our life's blood, this pattern that I'm talking about. And like I told you before, I'm preaching to myself. But you take from it. Somebody else out there needs to hear this message. Somebody else in here needs to hear this message as well. God moves you. Not always physically. Most of the time it seems it is, but not always physically. Or he doesn't always move you somewhere else. Often he does. Sometimes he changes you or your surroundings or your relationships. It's still a move. And these cycles, these ups and downs, ins and outs, if you will, movements, changes, are part of God's way. Remember where we started? One of the things we're teaching here is God's ways. This is part of God's ways. He moves you, he changes things, he rearranges the way he wants to, when he wants to. These are God's ways. Expect them. Act in faith in them. That's part of the trip. And while you're in these cycles of movement and changes, I want you to remember to activate or invoke a couple of principles and promises as well, so that you can minimize any mileage that Satan gets as he attacks you while you're reeling from these changes, because they're usually unexpected. Earlier I said you can change your relationships or a relationship with somebody, and that certainly would set you reeling. So understand what I'm saying here. They're usually unexpected, but having told you they're part of God's ways, expect them. And he, Satan, is looking for moments and or areas of weakness to seize and attack you worse, push it down harder, twist the knife. The promises that I'm asking you to know about now and call on now apply, because during these changes, like I said, reeling, moments of weakness, Satan's going to step in. He's going to make you think you're out of step with God, or you did something wrong, or you're guilty of something. All of it BS, by the way. The first principle we're going to talk about is the principle of Mahanaim. Now that's the proper name of a place that's spelt Mahanaim, Mahanaim. And that means two camps, or more literally, two hosts. And it comes from, originally, from the story of Jacob, way back in the Old Testament in Genesis, when God allowed him to see the heavenly hosts and the heavenly angels around him. And he named that place Mahanaim, which means two hosts. And also from David's life, and Samuel, like I was telling you before, when Saul goes crazy and he's on David's trail trying to kill him, David makes a beeline for some place. Where do you think that place is? Mahanaim. He goes to Mahanaim. Two hosts, or two camps. And your camp, the one that belongs to you, the one that you stand in, is filled with angels with spears and swords pointing outward to deal with the attacks of Satan and the things that are going on against you. Invisible hosts, angelic hosts, when you're acting in faith. Now, it's easy to hear this principle about what I'm talking about and to think that when you say two camps, that means that basically you're forted down, you're fortified, and there's one camp here and there's another camp there. That's the way it started. And yes, it does apply to that, but not necessarily. The camp can be anywhere you are. It can be at your desk at work. It can be in your vehicle driving down the road. I want you to go with me into the second book of Kings. We're going to give you a story now illustrating this from Elisha. Not Elijah, Elisha, who was his student and who took over for Elijah. Second Kings. I want you to go with me to chapter 6. And I want you to put a finger there, or a piece of paper, because I forgot to point something out in Deuteronomy. Can you go back to Deuteronomy 1, just real quick? Remember he said you have dwelt long enough in this mount. If you jump over, I wasn't going to do this originally, but I decided to go through. If you jump over to the 8th verse, remember what the subject is here. Changes and cycles and going in and out and things changing around you. Devil attacking you. 8th verse, it says, "Behold, I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land, which the Lord sware unto your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give unto them and to their seed after them." And when you're trusting Christ and God, you become Abraham's family. That means us too, me too. So if he's opening in a door, if he's changing you or moving you somewhere else, he's telling you, I set the land before you, go in and possess it. And if that's not enough, we teach God's repeatables here. Same chapter. Jump over to the 21st verse. God's moving you, or God's changing your situation. Repeats himself. Pay attention. He says, "Behold, the Lord thy God hath set the land before thee. Go up and possess it. As the Lord God of thy father has said unto thee, fear not, neither be discouraged." So if you find yourself going through a change or confronted by a change of any kind, God's behind it. Step out in faith. Back to 2 Kings. Now I want you to notice 2 Kings 6. Are we all there? Sorry to juggle you around there for a minute. This is unintentional, but isn't it interesting to notice that in this section of Elisha's life here, Syria is going against Israel. The king of Syria is trying to get the Israelites, not Israel, the nation that we now know, but Israel, the people back then. And he's trying to find out where they're at. And if you go to the 6th chapter, the 13th verse, he says, where it says, and he, the Syrian king, says, "Go and spy out where he," Elisha and the Israelites, is, "that I may send and fetch him." And it was told him, saying, "Behold, he's in Dothan." So they told him where Elisha and the Israelites are. And the Syrian king says, therefore, where it says, the Bible says, "Therefore sent he," the king, "thither horses and chariots and a great host." Underline that, a great host. "And they came by night and compassed the city around about." They surrounded Dothan, where Elisha and the Israelites were. 15th verse. "And when the servant of the man of God," Elisha, his servant, "was risen early and gone forth, behold, a host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And Elisha's servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? What are we going to do?" And he, Elisha, answered, and check this out, "Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them." And Elisha prayed and said, "Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, that he may see." And the Lord opened the eyes of the servant, the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire around Elisha. God's army of angels, full of horses and chariots of fire around them, invisible. Again, that's an example of Mahanaim and what we have going for us when we act in faith. And like I said, this can be your home, it can be your work, it can be just yourself, your little old self out there in the world. And the invisible host is there for you. Second principle, I want you to go with me. We're going to leap all the way into the New Testament for the Apostle Paul in the book of Philippians. It's a little tiny book, so I'll give you a few seconds to get there. It's after Ephesians. I got to find the spot myself here. Apostle Paul, sent one by God. Chapter 4 of Philippians. Now keep in mind, we don't want to lose track of what we're teaching here. That is, change, movement. Eleventh verse. Not that I speak in respect of want, Paul is talking. For I have learned in whatsoever state I am, and it says therein to be content. Sorry, that's an error by the mistranslators. Therein, you'll notice, is in italics. That was added by what I call the mistranslators. It doesn't appear in the original. Because Paul's not telling you to be content with the state that you're in. He's telling you to be content whatever state you're in. Not with the state, but to be content. And he goes on to say, and I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. Being abased is the easier one. It's hard to go through being abased, but you sure know where your focus is and your concentration is when you're being abased, or should be. And I know how to abound. That's the more dangerous one, because when you're abounding, you're not always focused on the Lord as you should be, or on God as you should be. But he's saying, I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things. He's not saying this, I'm saying this. Changes, cycles, ins and outs, ups and downs, attack, reward, victory. Everywhere and in all things I'm instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. And I've taught on this section before, and I have told you before, that means to live a balanced faith life. But back to the opening of this, he said, I've learned in whatsoever state I am to be content. And I am bound and determined to conduct myself according to these principles and to be content with whatever state God has me in. And that's my message tonight. And it's offering time. The address should be up on the screen. We've taught from the book of Galatians 6, where it says, if you've been taught in the Word, and you just were, to share materially. It says fellowship. That's translating the word koinonia, which means jointly participate. And then it goes on to say, with all good things in the one that taught you. For the offertory tonight, we're going to have I'll trust in you. That fits right in. I have certain band members that are always on the same wavelength as me, because what we're teaching here, going through changes and cycles and moving on and moving forward, not always easy, but I'll trust in you. Take it away.
I'll trust in you.
Okay, thank you guys. And I just want to mention in passing here in the way of an announcement, we are being cycled and moved in Children of the Free here. We're going to be upgrading the studio that we broadcast from with God's blessings. And so in the weeks ahead here, you may be seeing us in the River Chapel, or God knows where, maybe even up in Yellowstone in front of that big lodge that's out there. But while the remodeling and upgrading is being done, we're not going to miss a step or miss a stride. We're going to keep moving forward, keep teaching in faith. But it's not easy to go through moves like this, so I want you to pray for your pastor and pray for his staff and family and things that are being done here, because this is a time when the devil will try and throw a wrench in the works, but God's in the corner before we are and before he is. Satan is not omniscient. He doesn't know what we're going to do. Well, he does know now. So we've laid down the gauntlet, and I want you to be prepared. As the old saying goes, keep your dukes up, keep your faith dukes up, and keep on walking in faith. And we'll play that to close tonight.
Well, I searched and I searched for a road that led to glory. I wondered if I'd ever find my way. I was so dismayed, for the road it seemed so lonely. But then I heard a voice within me say, you've got to keep on walking, keep right on walking, walking in the light of the Lord. You'll get to heaven someday, you can only get in the faith way, walking in the light of the Lord. Well, I faith and I faith, and the Lord he gave me mercy. I faith and he brightened up my way. I sat down to rest, for my feet had grown so weary. But then I heard a voice within me say, you've got to keep on walking, keep right on walking, walking in the light of the Lord. You'll get to heaven someday, and only get in the faith way, walking in the light of the Lord. You've got to keep on walking, keep right on walking, walking in the light of the Lord. You'll get to heaven someday, can only get in the faith way, walking in the light of the Lord, walking in the light of the Lord, walking